In Climate Watch, climate activist Greta Thunberg is telling lawmakers to listen to scientists. The 16-year-old, alongside young American activists, testified on Capitol Hill Wednesday. They made a passionate plea for lawmakers to act on climate change. CBS News' Katherine Johnson reports.
Greta Thunberg joined a group of teen climate activists to deliver a blunt message to members of Congress.
I don't want you to listen to me. I want you to listen to the scientists. And then I want you to take real action.
The 16-year-old Swedish teen urged U.S. lawmakers to unite behind science and tell the truth about climate change before it becomes irreversible.
We need to inform them and start treating this crisis like the existential emergency it is. Then I think people will understand.
Jamie Margolin, a teen activist from Seattle, said Congress has a responsibility to protect the planet from collapsing.
People call my generation Generation Z, as if we are the last generation. But we are not. We are refusing to be the last letter in the alphabet.
Some lawmakers agreed to do more.
The scientific consensus is clear. Climate change is real. Its effects, including changes to rainfall and farmers' growing seasons, sea level rise along our coasts, and exacerbation of conflicts abroad, are a threat to us all.
The young voices spoke collectively and told lawmakers for far too long climate change has been politicized, and now is the time to solve the problem.
We have an opportunity and a chance for people to come together on this issue and work across party lines and generate economic growth to solve this issue.
Polls show more than 60% of Americans disapprove of President Trump's handling of climate change. After the hearing, Thunberg joined members of Let the Youth Be Heard and lawmakers on the steps of the Supreme Court for a call to action on climate change. Katherine Johnson, CBS News, Washington.
Teen activist Jamie Margolin joins us now. She's also the founder of the international nonprofit 0 Hour. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you are the co-founder and co-executive director of 0 Hour. How did your organization come about, and what's your mission?
So 0 Hour came about in the summer of 2017 when I had just been seeing overwhelming climate devastation and people were simply not paying attention. Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico, and that was a climate exacerbated storm. And where I live in Seattle, Washington, there was massive smoke clouds that coated our city that blew over from the wildfires worsened by climate change that happened in Canada. And so then my city was covered in this thick shroud of smog, and all of these climate disasters were happening at the same time while Trump pulled out of the Paris Accord, and it was just everything happening at once. And so I said, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm going to start a youth climate march because there needs to be a youth mobilization for climate action so adults realize that we have no more time to take action. And so I posted on my social media, I'm going to organize a youth climate march. Who's with me? And several other young people messaged me and said, we're with you. And so over the course of 1 year, we were organizing and working and building and building. You know, this was before climate action was, by young people, was considered cool or covered by the press, but we were still doing the work. And exactly a year after I posted that announcement, we had the Youth Climate March on July 21st of 2018 in Washington, D.C. and 25 cities around the world. It was pouring rain in Washington, D.C. when we were marching, but so many youth showed up anyway because this is 0 Hour to act on climate change. We have no more time. The mission of our organization is to mobilize, educate, and empower young people to take radical action on the climate crisis and pressure our leaders to do absolutely everything in their power to save my generation before it's too late.
And what message did you specifically want lawmakers to leave with on Wednesday?
I want lawmakers to leave with the message that the climate action is the only practical and sensible way of going about anything. When I was at the hearing, there were so many politicians who were saying, we need to be sensible, we can't be too crazy or radical, but the only sensible thing is to take action on the climate crisis. There is no, you know, all these politicians were talking about the economy. There is no economy, there is no functioning society on a planet that is in ecological collapse. Without clean air, clean water, a stable climate, and a livable environment, you cannot have a functioning economy. You cannot have all of these things that a lot of the Republican politicians were talking about as excuses on why they couldn't take climate action. You have to be smart about things and realize, I feel like a lot of these politicians just need to grow up and stop with these petty excuses that they can't take climate action because China China isn't doing enough, or they made all of these crazy excuses. But we, the young people, saw through what their BS and saw that they really are in the pockets of the fossil fuel and animal agriculture industries. And you know what? We said, enough is enough. We need you to take action, because anything other than urgent climate action is criminal. Why? Because at least in the United States, we have the constitutional rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. By continuing to make the climate crisis worse, these politicians are knowingly denying our rights to those things, because you can't have life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness without clean air, clean water, and a livable planet.
Jamie, let me ask you, you talk about politicians. You have talked about running for office, and you told lawmakers Wednesday that it'll be too late to start acting on climate change by the time you're old enough to fill a seat. Is being elected still a goal for you? Do you believe lawmakers are actually the ones who must make a change?
I mean, it's tricky, because right now, whenever I go lobbying, or I was just spending like 3 days straight with my organization, 0 Hour. We were on the Capitol Hill for 3 days straight, just lobbying, having meetings and meetings and meetings and meetings. And what we get all the time is politicians who will not pledge to take any action. They'll just pat us on the head and be like, good job, you know, you're so cute, you're so inspiring. Maybe someday you should run for office and you can take action on climate, which is messed up, because we only have about 18 months left in order to create the political environment in order to solve the climate crisis before it's too late. So as a 17-year-old, for them to throw it on a 17-year-old's shoulders and say, oh, when you grow up, you can do this. Well, no, by the time I grow up, it's too late. So, I mean, you know, on Monday, I got to meet Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is a congresswoman who is an icon of mine, and I look up to her. And so the goal is, you know, I was standing out there in the balcony where presidents are inaugurated, and I was looking out, and I was like, maybe I'll be standing up here getting inaugurated someday. So it's not like that dream is gone, but my dream is not to become an elected official so I can solve the climate crisis, because by the time I'm old enough to be an elected official, it's going to be way too late. So my political aspirations, or lack of, who knows, things could change. I'm only 17. I haven't even really started college applications, even though I'm kind of behind on them, so I should probably do that. Like, even if that's the path I decide to go on, it doesn't matter, because right now, with the people who are holding the power right now, they're the ones, whether we like it or not, that are in power within this tiny, tiny window. The door is closing, and we have this tiny window to take action before it's too late.
Teen activist Jamie Margolin. Clearly, Jamie, you are passionate about what you believe in. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you so much for having me.